What a glorious day for it.
Well, conditions like this, great for exploring rubbish for photography. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to share how I counter these conditions photographically and show you how fast it can be to edit the shots.
That's how you call the dolphins.
Tell me you heard that.
Do that again.
I'm not doing it for the
Call the
internet.
dolphins.
I'm an adult.
Call the dolphins. He's just called the dolphins.
Bossy mare.
Today, 4 of us are going to the Rampion Wind Farm. Ben, my photo buddy, his daughter, my husband and myself. Now, I have only bought one camera and one lens. I'm going for infrared because the sky is incredibly blue, there's a few clouds and pretty much nothing else.
I have an old 600D that I decided to convert a few years ago to infrared, 720 nanometers. Because it's converted and I don't need any filters, I can go handheld.
Double filming.
Double filming.
You'll see why this is important as we go through.
Today, Benjamin, I'm doing something a bit different. Have you noticed anything different about me other than these very cool sunglasses?
Did you steal Batman's belt?
One has a bum bag.
I think they call it something else, don't they? Fanny pack?
Well, that shut me up.
And anyway, it's dwarfed by your bum.
Ouch.
So this is my new purchase. It's a little smaller than I thought it was going to be.
But I think it's going to be my home for my infrared camera for the future. I can thus explore clutter-free.
But how do you get it balanced so it doesn't feel weird
It needs to be on your hips.
Okay,
on your hips?
who knew? Apologies. Right, back to the matter in hand. Today, being such a blue sky day, was absolutely ideal for infrared photography. This stuff saves my summers. Now, as well as making skies pop black if the sun is behind you, it also allows architecture to really stand out and clouds to be beautifully white. Not that we have many clouds at this point. Ah, romantic. A few years ago, I had the privilege of going to the Maunsell Forts and wind farms just off the coast of Kent. It was a long day, and we had very similar conditions to this, but I didn't take my infrared. In order to combat the contrast in these scenes, I ended up converting most of my photos to black and white. The conversion didn't quite cut it. For such angular and distinctive structures, I purposely chose a rather punchy edit. And on these structures in particular, I think the colour does work better. But on this day in Brighton, I had wind farms only.
Well, it's quite an awesome day. There's quite a lot of sea spray and we're going quite choppy, but what a glorious day. With my infrared though, I need some clouds. May have bought the wrong camera.
This being Britain, I needn't have worried. The god of clouds worked his magic. And as long as I remembered to keep the sun behind me as much as possible, well, I should have some pretty poppy skies.
These are really quite awe-inspiring. When you get underneath, the noise is extraordinary. They're a haven for black bass and bream over here, and there are some smaller boats. There's people fishing.
Charming. Okay, again, punchy edits. But I think they suit this subject better than a more wishy-washy, softer one, and we did get some funky clouds in the end. And with the sun behind me, that punch was even more. I know that the edit and the topic will be, well, not to everyone's taste, but let me show you how IR can be. Interestingly, it's not shunned by photography competitions, if you're into those things at all. Well, back to the boat, and it was quite a speedy journey back, so much so that, well, all I could do was throw my head back and laugh as this happened repeatedly. And of course I stuck myself in harm's way. It had been a bad week, what better way to get over it? What fun!
I wonder how waterproof this camera is. Maybe I shouldn't be testing it like this. Woo-hoo-hoo! Sorry.
As we headed along the coast, I was able to capture 2 more shots. Viewpoints that, unless I'd been on a boat, I couldn't have captured. There's no doubt that on days like today, infrared really saves the day. Traditional photography just wouldn't have cut the mustard. Now for the diehards, the edit. This is my workflow. I have a number of photos I can choose from. They obviously look a bit of a peculiar colour at this stage, and I'm going to need to put these into black and white, but I'm going to go for this particular choice of photo because it's got a number of windmills in it, but also quite an interesting sky that I might like to work with. So what I've done initially is I've just hit auto when it's come in. And basically what that has done is it's just darkened down that sky. It's also taken down some of those highlights on the mills, which actually allows me to be able to put in locally what I would like to do. All I'm going to do right now is open this up. This will take me through to the main Adobe Photoshop from Adobe Camera Raw. One of the first things that I need to do is to make sure that I have a clean scene. So I'm going to go back to my whole scene here, which is a 3x2. I have got over here a little bit of a mark that I want to get rid of. So I'm just going to make sure that that's gone as a distraction. I also want to make sure that I have my horizon leveled, and to do that I quite often find it useful to pop the grid on so that I can really see how out it is. Not too bad, but I'm going to straighten that just so that it stops being on a wonk. Obviously, being on a boat, there's not a lot I could do at the time. I just had to click away and hope for the best. Next up, I am going to do my conversion. Now, I can do this within Photoshop, and we've got the black and white one there that I can go into, but I have got the Nick Silver effects, which actually allows me to do it quite quickly. They're presets. Obviously, that's not always to everyone's taste, but just for speed, I'm going to be using that. And what I can do is I can choose any number of options going through. I quite like that because it's a bit punchy. So I'm going to use, in this case, the high contrast harsh preset. Some presets do seem to put in a bit of halo effect, which isn't great. And also they sometimes as well put in a lot of grain. 500, conversely, it sounds like I shouldn't have 500, but if I were to take that down to 0, as you can see, there's an awful lot of grain there. Some presets have that built in, so I'm going to make sure I'm using a clean one because I don't want any grain to be on there. I'm also going to then have a look at colour filter on top. So I've got my basic one now here. The red will make things brighter and the whites, and I can take that right the way through to the opposite extreme, which is the blue filter. I'm going to go with a mid-range filter here, the yellow, and I'm going to come out and hit OK. What it does is it takes that choice through and puts it in a separate layer. So I've got that ready to go. If I want to bake that in for now, I can do layer and flatten the image. So I've done my choice of photo, I've removed distractions, and I've done my basic conversion. I would like now to do levels. I would like to have a look at seeing if I can bring some of those darks, the punch back into the sky. So I'm going to hit Command and L because I'm working on a Mac. If I wasn't, it would be Control and L. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring down some of those blacks, particularly in the sky. And this left-hand area here, this left-hand slider, allows me to bring back however much I wish to at this point in time. I've also got the ability to go and bring back the whites or make that higher if I wish to. I don't. Now, I know that that's going to have meant that my blacks in the foreground or the sea, I've got some pure blacks, and I know that because I've set up, when I go into Camera Raw, the warning sign, and that, ladies and gentlemen, that blue is the warning sign there. So if I want to do some work on masking or edits, I have a choice of how I can do it. If I go to this top section at the top here, I will affect everything universally. If I go to this section here, which is the fourth icon down, I can go to localized edits. All I'm going to do is do a brush, and I'm just going to do a couple of sweeps across the bottom of that scene there. And I'm just going to make my blacks lift until they're pretty much all sorted there. I just want to make sure that I don't have sweeping amounts of pure blacks in that scene. I might also just here take it down so I can get it off my windmill there. I'm going to do a linear gradient, and I'm going to make that again a little bit more punchy. I'm going to take it into the sea here because you'll see the mask isn't really going to affect that too much. And I'm going to take those blacks down a bit more. Oh, again, I've got that quite punchy in there. I might take as well a highlights down a little bit as well. So what I'm doing here is adding punch where I wish to. I'm going to go to my general area and I'm going to go to optics and I'm going to pop a vignette on there. It's going to be quite a strong vignette and I know it's going to add in some of the pure blacks again, which I'm going to have to just jump back and take back out. How I'm going to do that is by this, jumping into an existing mask that I've got there, and I'm just going to just sweep that brush across again, just so I take that pure black out. So I'm going to hit the main OK, which is going to take me back through to the main Photoshop area, and if I wish to I can do lots of other tweaks at a later stage, but let's first of all then go to a bit of a crop. Probably should have done this earlier thinking about it, because I've just put that linear gradient on. I just want to keep as much as I can of that sky. Okay, that'll do for now. It is a bit of a crude edit, but you get the general drift. Infrared photography, because it's punchy, can be quite quick to do, particularly if you have something like the Nick effects. Now I confess, I'm a landscaper. This doesn't really float my boat, although it is interesting. These are my 3 favoured shots. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Thank you for joining me today. I very much look forward to taking you with me wherever I am next time. Have a cracking week.